So what I want to look at today, we're not going to learn anything new today. What we're going to do today is review all of our factoring techniques and talk about when we're going to use them. Okay, so if maybe you are unsure with some of our methods, today we're literally reviewing all those methods. We are. And also reviewing when would we use them. When we've learned these the last few lessons, we've learned them very much individually. Now we're putting everything together while at the same time reviewing everything. So what you see at the top of assignment 6, we're going to do a few of these questions together. What you see at the top is a little checklist. Option number 1 is GCF. GCF is something you always want to try first, no matter what. After you try GCF, then you start looking for some of our other methods. Method 2, we have the quadratic trinomial, where our x squared coefficient is 1. I have an example of that in the parentheses. Quadratic, meaning highest exponent is 2. Trinomial, we talked about our tricycle having 3 wheels, so our trinomial has 3 terms. Our little shortcut for this, or if you choose to do the long way, this was the one where we multiply to get the last number, and we add to get the middle number. So if you're unsure of our factoring techniques, guys, this is the piece to really focus in on. This one does have the shortcut. And then we've also seen where we can make a binomial into our trinomial by putting 0x as our middle term, and we will refresh on that today. Now we also had our quadratic trinomials. I'm on option 3. We also had the quadratic trinomials, but our x squared coefficient is something other than 1. The example I have in parentheses, the x squared coefficient is a 4. It doesn't have to be a 4, it just has to be something other than 1. So when we have that different number in front of x squared, remember that's where we had to take our first term times our third term to do our multiply piece. And we still add to get the middle term. This was the one that didn't have the shortcut. I know a lot of you like the shortcut, and we'll review it today. Once we have a different number in front of x squared, we can no longer do our shortcut. And then last but not least, option 4, if you have 4 terms, you have no choice, you have to do your grouping. Okay? So that's our little checklist to try to help us figure out when to do each thing. So let's see how that checklist works. And at the same time, we're going to review each of those 4 things. So if you're feeling shaky about factoring at all, we're going to review each of our possible factoring methods right now. Okay? Like I said, nothing new. Our last new lesson was a couple of classes ago. Nothing new. We're going to spend some time reviewing and figuring out for sure to know when to use each thing. So here we go. Let's look at question 1. I start at the top of my list. GCF. Always try this first. So in number 1, for some reason my 18 didn't stick on my sheet. You guys have an 18 on your sheet first. I have an 18, a 36, and a 9. Is there a number that can go into all 3 of those? Yeah. What can go? 9 can. We want to go as big as we can, so we're going to go 9. And I'm even going to label off to the side that we're using GCF. And then we also have to look at, and I don't know why mine has a B on here. Mine didn't save right. Yours printed right. I should have an X there. We have an x to the third. We have an x squared. But then the 9 doesn't have an x with it. So can I use x as part of my GCF? No, I can't. So all I can do is divide by 9. And so 18 divided by 9 gives me 2. X to the third just stays x to the third. 36 divided by 9 minus 4x squared. There's nothing to change the x squared. And then this one I definitely wanted to show because I still have a few people thinking that if I have something like 9 divided by 9, it means there's nothing left. There's really a 1 there. I have to have that placeholder. Remember, we're going in reverse of the distributive property. So if I get my final answer and I redistribute, I need to get what I started with. I need a placeholder. Now, some of you I know on the quiz lost easy points because you left something like this as your final answer, and then I took a point off. You're like, oh, why did I lose a point? Why would I take a point off if that's your final answer you give me for number 1? Casey, why?
Because there's not like the parentheses in the 9.
I need parentheses, and I need to put my GCF out front. So don't forget that piece. Remember, when you factor, your final answer should look like something you distribute. Okay. All right, so we've got our GCF on that one. Look at the numbers, look at the variables. Don't forget to put your parentheses and GCF out front. All right, I move on to question 2, and I'm going to go down my checklist. It always says to try GCF first. In number 2, I'm looking at the numbers. I have a 1, a 7, and an 18. Nothing other than 1 can go in there. I have an x squared, an x, and no x. Do we have anything common in number 2? No. So now I'm going to move down my checklist. Number 2 says quadratic trinomial, x coefficient of 1. Quadratic means highest exponent is 2. Trinomial means we have 3 terms. So as I look at question 2, my highest exponent is 2. I have 3 terms, and the number in front of x squared, it is a 1. We don't write it. Mathematicians are lazy. We don't write it. So this is going to be my quadratic trinomial. This is option 2. Option 2, we can use the shortcut. So I want to refresh that with you today. I encourage you to use the shortcut. You can use the long method with the grouping if you want. But I'm going to show the shortcut today. All right, so we have up in our notes, we need to multiply to get the last number. And we need to add to get the middle number. All right, so 9 and 2 will work, but the question is, which one needs to be negative? The 2 does. Keep in mind, guys, those 2 numbers have to be the same. So whatever I multiply together to get negative 18, I have to add those same 2 to get 7. So just keep that in mind. Some of you are trying to do different things. Those numbers have to be the same. Now the shortcut for this. I'm going to show the shortcut on this, and then we will do the longer version when we get to that option 3. So if you need a refresh on that, we'll do that then. We know our final answer needs to look like something we would distribute, aka multiply. In order to get that x squared term when I multiply, we know we need x and x. And then our 2 magic numbers we found, they just join the x's. -2, +9, and I move on. I hope my people talking right now didn't miss that. Yeah.
So, no matter what, you have to have that x minus 2 first before the x plus 1.
So the order doesn't matter. Remember we talked about that last week. That's a great thing to bring up. Either one of those answers is great. The thing you have to have an x plus 9 and you have to have an x minus 2. The order that those go in, which one's first and which one's second, doesn't matter. Multiplication's commutative, which means I can flip-flop it and it's okay. But I have to have an x plus 9 and an x minus 2. Doesn't matter which one comes first. All right, so far we have reviewed option 1, which was GCF. We've reviewed option 2, which is our quadratic trinomial, x squared coefficient of 1. All right, so let's try number 3. I always try GCF first. So in question 3, I don't have a lot of numbers to work with. I've got a couple 2's, but that's it. I look at the variables. I've got an x squared, I've got an x, I've got an x, but I don't have an x on the last term. So GCF isn't going to work for number 3. Always start with GCF though. Always start there before you go to anything else, even if you know, oh, it's going to be option 2 or option 3. Always try GCF first. It might make your life a little easier if you try that first, some smaller numbers to work with. All right, option 2 says quadratic trinomial. Why isn't option 2 going to work for this question? Because I have 4 terms, right? I've got more than 3 terms, so that doesn't work.
Can't you do that box thing?
Option 3 says quadratic trinomial also, so that doesn't work. So I get down to option 4. Option 4 says 4 terms. 4 terms equals grouping, which is parentheses or boxes. Parentheses or boxes. So you have your choice. The parentheses piece, we group first 2 and last 2. And then if you like the boxes, I'm just going to draw that up above up here. If you like the boxes, that means we put our 4 terms on the inside boxes, and we need to work our way out. So it's up to you which way you liked. At this point, the last 3 lessons, we focused on this grouping technique. So hopefully at this point you've decided what you like. If not, I would figure that out today and pick a method and go with it. Practice that one. All right, so if you do the parentheses, GCF of the first set is an x. We're left with x plus. Remember, we need that placeholder. You can cross those x's out all you want. There's still a 1 there. 2 in the second set. We're left with an x. And again, 2 divided by 2, you can cross it out all you want, but it simplifies to a 1. If you do the parentheses, remember, your goal is to get the parentheses on that next step that they have to match. If they don't match, this method doesn't work. You have to make them match to move forward. All right, so they match. I have left x plus 2, and I divided by x plus 1. Now, if you like the boxes, I've got about 50-50 split in here. Who likes what?
Can you put it the other way too?
Yes, if you're wondering if I can switch those around, look at what we just did in question 2. All right, so the box method. I can take an x out of the first row. I can take a 2 out of the second row. X out of the first column. Now the second column with the boxes, if you're like, Miss Skylar, there's nothing for me to take out. There's always a 1. Yeah, there's always a 1. Now, if you missed out on it in question number 2, it doesn't matter the order that you put the parentheses in. It doesn't matter. What matters is you need an x plus 1 and you need an x plus 2. That's what matters. The order you put those in does not. All right, so far we've used GCF. We did the quadratic trinomial shortcut where the x squared coefficient is 1. In number 3, we just did a grouping. Now in number 4, let's go through and see what might work. Always try GCF first, even if you think, oh, hey, this looks like it's going to be a quadratic trinomial, or hey, this is going to be grouping. Always try GCF first. I have a 3, 4, and 15. There's nothing common there. X squared, x, and no x. Nothing common there. Yeah.
What's the one called for that you did it for number 2? What's that one called?
The question number 2 was option 2. That's our quadratic trinomial with the x squared coefficient of 1. So in number 4, we don't have a GCF that'll work. I do have, though, in number 4, I have a quadratic, highest exponent 2. I have a trinomial, 1, 2, 3 terms. But the number in front of x squared, though, it's not 1, so we've got to do option 3. Option 3, no shortcut. Option 3 was the very last thing we worked on in our last lesson. So I want to make sure I refresh on that today. It's the last technique we haven't used yet. So in order to do that one, though, we had that one small little extra thing. We had to multiply the first number times our third number. I'm going to write that up here. It's not fitting. And we're going to add to still get the middle. So when you have that quadratic trinomial, we still have to find those two magic numbers, shortcut or not. For this one, we have to do the first number times the third number first. Okay. So what numbers do we think are going to work here? Negative 45, and we had to get 9. Or excuse me, I had to get 4. 5 and 9. Which one's going to be negative? 5. Negative 5, positive 9. Negative 5, positive 9. Again, they have to multiply to give us negative 45. And they add to give us 4. Now with this one, there's not a shortcut. So with this one, remember, we keep our first term the same. We split the middle one. And then we leave the last term the same. Remember, factoring is working your way backwards through the distributive property. So we go from 3 terms, we go back to 4. Now I treat it just like question number 3. Do you like the parentheses or do you like the boxes? Up to you, your choice. If you want to do the parentheses, go ahead and group those. If you want to do the boxes, go ahead and do those. It's up to you. For the last 3 lessons, this is the technique we've practiced, is our grouping technique. So I'm hoping at this point, you've decided which one you like. If not, guys, I would make that decision today and go with it. Make your decision today and go with the one you like. Neither way is, it's up to you what you like. Neither way is necessarily faster or better than the other. Both ways have their advantages. Both ways have their little, I don't want to call them disadvantages, but just little things you have to remember. With the boxes, just remember, you have to check your signs on the boxes. So remember to check back through. So if you've got x times 3x, you get 3x squared. If you have x times negative 5, you get negative 5x. 3 times 3x gets you 9x. 3 times negative 5 gives you negative 15. So if you do the boxes, you can just go back through and check and make sure your signs are okay. So either way you do it, x plus 3 and 3x minus 5, that's your final answer. Again, the order you put those in doesn't matter. You can write them in any order you want. You need an x plus 3 and you need a 3x minus 5. The order you put those in doesn't matter. Now this top row, guys, that's all of our factoring methods. There's nothing else you have to know about factoring. The reason why I wanted to do this today was twofold. First of all, I wanted to review each method. Second of all, I wanted to make sure I talked to you about how you know when to use each one. So this little checklist can help you out a little bit. The last thing I want to look at And we're not going to do the whole question together, but I want to look at number 5. Number 5, again, we always try greatest common factor first. I have an x squared and a 25. There's no common number, there's no common variable. So now I move on to option 2, and it says a quadratic trinomial. Well, I've got the quadratic part, highest exponent 2, but I don't have the trinomial piece. So that's where I have up here for you part B. Can you make a trinomial by adding 0x as the middle term? Yes, we can. Yes, we can. So for something like number 5 is not finished. Number 5 is not finished. From there, you can do the shortcut if you want, or you can do the longer grouping method. It's up to you. 5 is not finished, but it's just how you can go about number 5. So that was option number 2, part B. So option number 2, part B, we put the 0 in and now go from there to finish off that one. So what you have now on assignment number 6 is an example of each of our factoring types. So if you need to go back and finish assignment 4 or assignment 5, this can also help you do those things. We just reviewed all our factoring. Remember, nothing new this week. None of this stuff is new. Nothing new. We're just talking about reviewing our methods and when to use each one. And that's what we'll see. We'll do it again tomorrow as well, just to help you guys get that extra practice.
Did we finish the sheet or what?
So the rest of the time is yours. If you need to finish, a lot of you didn't give me assignment 4 last time. If you need to finish assignment 4 or assignment 5, if you have 4 and 5 finished, then assignment 6 is where you're going to want to focus.